I am Surya, the co-founder and CEO of Persona AI, and I am back with Margaret from Woodpecker, where she's the CEO there as well. We've chatted before, but I think why we wanted to do this webinar again and why I was so excited to chat with Margaret is that a lot has changed in the cold email world. So, I thought this webinar needed a 2025 sort of update. And, for those of you who don't know, Margaret is an amazing founder of in this like sales space, and I'd love to hear her intro in her own words. So Margaret, if you can just give a couple lines intro for people who may not know you, and then we can go forward.
Absolutely. So hi, my name is Margaret. I'm a CEO at Woodpecker, and I'm extremely enthusiastic about B2B sales and about cold outreach. So I'm super happy to be here to chat with you about that. And I couldn't agree more because in 2025, there is a lot of update to do, but yet I still think that there is a lot of good stuff to get from outbound, and it's one of the most efficient acquisition channels that you can actually have.
Yeah, and wanted to like also maybe you have a very interesting background. So if people go on your LinkedIn, they say that you have like a PhD in law, I believe. So
Yeah.
how did you, for those of you who don't know, like how did you go from getting a PhD in law to B2B sales, and any little relevancies you see from your education there to your current work now?
Absolutely. So I'm really enthusiastic about law. I mean, it's super interesting. But when I studied, I kind of figured that I have more like entrepreneurial spirit than just being there for a client in terms of being like a typical lawyer. Nothing against that. So if anyone being a lawyer listens to that, so it's not like me criticizing the job, but it's just a different mindset and different approach. And I basically started at Woodpecker a while ago, like a while meaning around 10 years. I started as a junior supporter, which is like the entry level to IT world. And I loved it from day one. I mean, the whole concept of how you can generate customers for yourself, but how you can also build up on that. And, the whole idea that stands behind B2B sales was extremely cool. So I had different roles in the company, from being junior supporter to finally getting to the stage of being a CEO, which happened last year. But I've been with the company for a very long time. So yeah, that's the story behind.
Yeah, and that's it's so cool to meet with people who also like you really know the ins and outs of this, right? Like you literally started at Woodpecker doing this. So I mean, definitely a lot has changed even within the last year that we chatted. But for those of you who don't know, maybe just give a little quick refresher that what Woodpecker does. I think that would be helpful to set context as we start going deeper into the conversation.
Sure, absolutely. So Woodpecker is a tool that you use to generate customers in terms of sequencing. Right now, you can combine both email and LinkedIn and create very powerful campaigns to just simply get to the people to generate new leads, but also to, for example, set up your partnerships. So there are many use cases. It's not only B2B sales, it's anything that requires you setting up a relation with other people via at least two channels. So you can combine email and LinkedIn. So that's the core. And we've been on the market for 10 years. The thing that I'm extremely proud is our deliverability standards. So if anything is super geek or super keen to talk about deliverability, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And that's the long story short.
Yeah, and I think deliverability, as you touch on it, is more important than ever right now. So I think since we last chatted, it was probably one of the early days of like AI and personalization and all that stuff. And now I think the experts in the space, it's like definitely moved way beyond that. And I guess my question to you is, and this is something a lot of our customers would love to know, right? Everyone, now within Persona, just for those of you who don't know, we are a super app for prospecting. We connect over 100 different data providers and sources, and we help you integrate with amazing platforms like Woodpecker to help you send and scale your cold outreach. So a lot of our customers and, people in the space as well, right? If everyone can personalize now at scale, right? Like how can we differentiate? How can we land in the inbox? And, because of the rise of like AI outreach and things like that, I'm sure you've gotten those emails where you can definitely tell this is AI generated. They didn't even try to do it well. And a lot of those end up being marked as spam and things like that. So I think that's where platforms like Woodpecker are super key. So would love to hear your thoughts on that. Like now that AI has made the playing field a little easier per se, or definitely that people can do outbound at scale at a much higher volume, how can people actually land in the inbox, and what are the safeguards they need to set up before even writing the copy and things like that?
Absolutely. So the way I like to look at the problem is that what AI gives us is amplification of everything that you do. You can scale easier. You can basically test multiple things. But one thing that you need to start your business with is the idea, or the idea of your offer market fit. So simple example, if you will try to sell meat to a vegan restaurants, it doesn't matter how much AI you put on the top of that, because you still multiply through zero. So effectively, you need to understand like what is your offer, what you bring to the table, and to whom the offer may fit. And if you have that, and I'm sure that majority of people who is listening to that can get to the point when they understand like what you bring to the table, then right now you're in a comfortable situation that you have softwares as, for example, Persana, that can help you to test multiple angles. Because, like 5 years ago, the problem was that if you wanted to personalize on scale, that was extremely expensive and difficult. So usually you couldn't test a lot of angles. And right now what you have is that you can easily gather data for like FOMO based approach, for like limited time offer, for competitor offer, for social media signals offer. So you can test like 5 angles with no effort just because of the tech stack that you have out there.
Yeah.
So I think like, the first is to understand what is your product or service, how it differentiates from competitors and stuff like this. And if you have that, so you do your homework, then everything after this just gets easier because of technology.
Yeah, and I think that's one like really great perspective to look at it, right? Like use the technology not to help you like spam more, but like to experiment more and like see what's working and what's not working. And like just because I think one thing that you said, like just because we have the technology doesn't mean you forget the basics, right? Like you still have to have a good offer, you still have to craft the right message, and things like that. So say like, I'm a business owner now that I've done the basics, I've done my research, I know my offer, I have some converting copy. Tell me a little bit about the technicalities, because I think this is where people get tripped up a little bit, or it seems too complicated or scary. What are some things on the technical side for deliverability and, inbox setup? What are some high level things that I need to keep in mind?
Absolutely. So first of all, I always like to start with planning. So for example, if you know that you need, let's say, 100 leads a month, or you have some kind of target in your head, what you usually should do is to plan, okay, what is necessary to send it? So we need to multiply domains, multiply mailboxes on these domains, just to diversify, to keep it going. Probably sending from more than one email provider is a smart move, because also risks like diversification and ESP matching. And then what
is ESP matching? Just for the people who don't know.
It's basically matching the unit from which you send, so like Google, Microsoft, whatever else, with where your prospects own their mailboxes. So like you send from Google to Google, from Microsoft to Microsoft, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of tools like this, so like the techniques that you can apply. But one part that is very often skipped is having backup. Because if you have a pipeline and something goes sideways, and sooner or later this will happen, it's very typical. If you have just one set of domains and one set of mailboxes and it got burned, you're just locked for like a month or two, because what do you do? So very smart for 2025 is to have backups, to plan it, and basically if something goes burned, you just plug in new set and you recover the other, or you just throw it away and buy a new one. That's probably the question of what strategy you prefer. But like planning, okay, this is my acquisition channel, this is from where I take my money, so I need to make it repeatable.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I think it's like I didn't like, making sure you have those backups, and also working backwards from, for example, I want to reach X number of people this month. How does that translate to inboxes? How does that translate to providers? And like
exactly.
backup. And I think more inboxes now are getting like, even if you don't think you might need have a little couple extra, right?
Exactly. And, right now you can physically buy it on scale.
Yeah.
Like you can buy it directly at Woodpecker. You can buy it in many other places in the world. You don't have to like go on to the provider, click it and, like set it up and so on. You can get ready to send mailboxes and domains from like Woodpecker other providers. So like what is the excuse not to have it? When it's cheap and it's easy and accessible, why you're not doing it?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you make of like, working backwards and then also having backups in your setup, and things like that. So okay, cool. So now I have my copy ready, I have my personalization, I have my like technical setup. What's the next step that I should do? I think one thing that you mentioned was like experimentation. What's the right way to go about that? And I would love to learn like a framework to think about that as well.
Sure. So usually when you create your copy and you set up your campaign, I think you should start with a goal because people tend to get frustrated with outbound because like you want to get results, but then you feel like it's not delivering it. And usually like when you assume, okay, I need like 100 new leads a month, potential sales deals, then you need to calculate backwards, like what is there? And one of the tactics that help you to get there is basically set up at least 5 strategies, 5 angles to communicate your value and start sending all of them at the same time or like in a similar time. Because what you get is that after a month or 2 months, you will see this angle gives me no results. The other angle gives me a little bit. And the third one gives me very good results. So after a month or 2 of tests, you have something substantial. If you test just one angle, you are doing like 0 to 1 tests. So you either prove yourself it works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then you need to take another one and another. It's very slow because ultimately something will stick. Like if you feel outbound is not working for you, trust me, there's so many people in the world that generate acquisition with outbound that you can do it. It's not unachievable. It's not like you need to be a genius to manage it.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of being, bold and testing enough so you can find something that works for your business.
Yeah, and about like, so from the start, how many weeks, or like I know there is like a 2-week warm-up period, right? From when you get the inboxes to like you can scale and send. So what is like a realistic like time estimate? Like when should people start seeing results? Because I see a lot of discourse online like I sent 100, no one responded to me. And that's not how it works, right? So what is a realistic time period people can kind of expect from like, the setup and sending and, say that you've done the 2-week warm-up period. What is some realistic timelines that, hey, I should be seeing some responses by now?
Sure. So one important thing is that 2 weeks warm-up is not the longest you could imagine, but I know that a lot of people go for it. We do for like, for example, for ourselves a bit longer, but also if you have fresh domain, so like you just purchase it,
Yeah.
my recommendation is to give it a little bit of time to get some age. So because otherwise it's very easy for anti-spam filters to detect that it was just set up and started sending and the volume is there. And this is a question of a debate because I see a lot of people starting from like day one. I would say there is no like only right and only wrong way because if you want to start scaling very fast, you scale horizontally. So if I want to get volume now, what I should do, of course, including some kind of warm up because you can't just like, skyrocket from day one, you add more domains and more mailboxes. So you scale through sending units horizontally. And you also work a little bit more on a copy to be on the safer side. So it's like, it's a trade-off. Okay, if I want volume now, I don't hit like 100 per mailbox because this is my volume. It's not like how we do it right now. You scale through different mailboxes and different domains. And I would say if you want to scale up, 3 mailboxes per domain. And I wouldn't recommend like as a goal to send more than 30 emails a day from mailbox. Of course, you need to test it on your own and see how it works, but that's like kind of a benchmark that I'm looking at. And always the best way is to check like if you're getting response rate somewhere between like 1.5 to 3%. If you're somewhere there, you are more or less in the global average.
Got it.
If something goes sideways, then it depends. But important, we have we know some stories of clients who get lower response rate, but the ticket value is so high that it's still worth doing it. So, benchmarks are cool to know, but always focus on what delivers for your business.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's also like, for example, right, something that is, on a higher value range or something more expensive, you might not be getting more responses. But since it is a high ticket size, it balances out. Or I think benchmarks are more general. And I think each sort of business and the way you are proposing it has its own. But I think just like having the benchmarks in mind is a good way to know, is this a channel worth investing in and all that stuff. How often should you refresh the copy and things like that? If something, say I reach some sort of responses, it's been a couple of months, should I keep that, like let it running? Should I refresh my inboxes? Say it's been about 4 months since I've had a successful outbound motion running, consistently booking meetings, things like that. Should I just leave that running, or what should I do to that?
My recommendation would be to stick with the angle, but change copy. Of course, assuming that you spin tags, you use snippets, and you do all the basic stuff that are necessary there. I think what works really is not exactly the copy, like word per word, is the angle, how you communicate. Because rotating copy helps you with anti-spam filters, and this is just the truth. So if you send for a couple of months, you are just basically increasing your chances of being flagged as a spam. Maybe you're super lucky and it will not happen to you, but like statistically speaking, it will happen sooner or later. So it's better to like, okay, I understand that, for example, for this market, FOMO-based works just amazing. So I keep FOMO-based tactic, but I change the copy.
Yeah, so that's a good point, because I think a lot of people, they do all the setup, they get this going, and they're like, okay, this is working. And then they're like, oh, this is not working anymore. And then they want to go back to the drawing board. So you recommend you don't have to go directly back to the drawing board, adding more spin tags, adding more copy change that might just do the trick.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I guess as we're wrapping up, apart from the basics and things that we know, what have you seen change in the last year? I think there's so many now, like new things that have come up with like AI and people adding like voice notes and memes and like generating everything under the sun that you can think of. Like I've even seen like videos with people's AI avatars come in the email and things like that. So it's, I feel like it's not just text copies people are doing. I'm seeing very creative ways people are leveraging it. What do we need to know now that like AI is not even just something like, I would say, people advanced use? Like I would say a lot of successful people in this space use AI as table stakes, whether they're using ChatGPT or they're using more, complicated platforms like Persana and Clay to scale this and sending through Woodpecker. So wanting to know, I guess, like now that everyone is using AI in some way or another, what are some good to knows and what are some safeguards they should have in mind?
Absolutely. So first of all, in terms of like very human level of how we see emails, if you automate something, this is just the matter of time when your audience will be able to figure that it's not like fully manually done. So in terms of like majority of people, when they receive cold email, they know that it was automated.
Yeah.
So the problem is not in like they understanding that it was not human made. The problem is that they will not reply if it doesn't fit their needs. So that's where we are playing around.
Yeah.
So everything that you use in terms of automation, like videos, generated images, landing pages, whatever is there, if it doesn't stick to your strategy, it will not fix the problem of conversion. So I would say for email, from a technical perspective, plain text is what delivers the best. Because this is the lighter. Everything that you add on the top of that, if you want to make it heavier, should be a part of strategy, because it's a trade-off. You're making your chances of landing in a spam higher because you think it will help you to convert. So it should be a choice, not an accident in that terms. And the other thing that is also there is that whenever you do any kind of advancement in terms of AI, it's also worth to know that you should experiment on that and you should change that and you should treat it in the same way as we spoke about the copy. So, copy can get used off. Anything else that you add there can get used off as well. So I see AI as a tool that you need to understand how you're using, because otherwise you're just accidentally pinning it there and somewhere else. And it's very important to build it as a strategy, not as just like a coincidence.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a great way to um, think about this as well. Of like, okay, now that everyone is using AI, it's kind of like everyone is just using like a text editor and things like that, right? It's something everyone will be using, whether in ChatGPT or in platforms and all that stuff. So it's good to know that like even with AI, these are the things, like the basics don't go away, right? You still have to
Exactly.
like rotating copy, you still have to make sure it gives value. And I like that point that you made. It's like 99% of the time, if I do get an email today, like that is some sort of outbound, it is automated in some
Yeah.
way or another, you know? So yeah, just wanted to maybe quickly share about, for those of you who don't know, before we wrap up, that we do have a Persona and Woodpecker integration as well. So I'll just quickly share my screen and you guys will be able to see how you can set up using Woodpecker within Persona and some quick example of, what is this sort of personalization, how you can use it. So let me just share my screen. Do you guys see my screen now? Is it sharing?
Not yet, I think. Ah, now it's loading.
Okay, perfect. So this is Persona. I just uploaded a list from our dashboard. You can also use our search, and I got a bunch of people and their social profiles and things like that. And from there, you can use, obviously, one of the main things is to even land in their inbox, you need to have the right contact information. So we have a waterfall email like work email provider. So you can either change, use different data providers. You can add your own API key. You can change the order of these. We have zero bounds validation as well. And this is mainly so that you can actually land in the inbox. Same thing that we have for phone numbers as well. So similar waterfall enrichment. We have different providers that you can choose, rank, and basically make sure that it connects, and you're only charged if that email or phone number is found by that data provider. So that is pretty nifty. Another thing that our customers really liked in terms of that personalization, right? Getting very deep, understanding the customer. This is our Persona Quantum Agent. So this does that deep reasoning within a company's website or any accessible website. And basically what's really good about this is that you can use the information from the Quantum Agent. You can also see the references it takes and um, generate copy based on this as well. So for example, you can see the input and use foundational models like ChatGPT and Claude at scale. So here I put a prompt, I use the different columns and personalizations, and I'm able to generate a copy for there as well. And finally, once I'm happy with a copy here, I want to add that prospect to Woodpecker. So in Woodpecker, you would get your API key account. You can choose which campaign you'd want to use here, and then add in the details here for Woodpecker. And that would send the prospects within that campaign there. So pretty easy, but if you guys have any questions, our team is more than happy to help get you set up there as well. Yeah, so just kind of, I think I really enjoyed hearing your thoughts on, okay, how has this changed? What are the basics and everything like that? And I